Hi, Pat Battle here with Living Web Farms for our next installation of our Resilience Daily series, which we're doing in cooperation with the Organic Grower School. And today we're going to talk about arugula. And we're going to also talk about this book, which is my favorite resource for seed saving, by Suzanne Ashworth. She tells you which plants cross with each other and which ones don't. She tells you how to save the seed, how to make sure it stays good for many years. She also tells you how to process it. It's a wonderful book. It's published by Chelsea Green, and I highly recommend that company for tons of useful books about all of the subjects that we're addressing in this series. Okay, so arugula. Arugula is a pretty wonderful plant because it is edible as soon as you think it's worth the effort of picking. It could be that small, and if you sowed too much, you could be getting baby greens or microgreens, and it's going to be edible until probably the seed pods have turned brown. By that time, the leaves might be getting a little tough and a little leathery. You could still cook them if you're really hungry, though. These leaves here have become a wee bit spicier, but mixed into a salad, they're still going to be quite wonderful. And of course, we mentioned in another video, these flowers are a culinary delight. They're going to be hot and sweet, and they're quite lovely on any salad. All right, so we know that we can save this seed and don't have to worry about distancing because it is got only one other member in its family, and that's a perennial, Turkish rocket. And you know that you're going to get a good seed crop when you see seed pods like this. And if you look again at the whole plant, you'll see that it's covered with those seed pods. So we don't have to do anything now except for wait for these to become mature. We'll know they're mature when these pods have become dry and brittle. Then the seeds will be developed, and then we'll do another video about how to actually collect and process these. If perchance you needed this space for something else, you could get a lot of viable seed even right now from the pods that are at this size by pulling the whole plant up, leaving as much root as you can on it, and hanging it in a cool, dry place. And it would get more energy from the roots and the remaining parts of the plant, put all that energy into developing a fair amount of seed. Not quite as vigorous, but arugula is incredibly vigorous anyway, so that would work quite well. So for small gardens, you don't have to give up your space. Or you could tie up a few of these, pull them to the side, put a stake. They wouldn't get quite as much photosynthesis because the leaves would be close together, but they still could put more energy into making even more and more vigorous seed. Another example of doing that, I actually moved this from another farm because it would cross with other radishes. And this is a plant that we are really excited about, but we can't really remember where the seed came from. It was a packet that was languishing in our older collection of seeds, and we just sowed it out last year, and it turned out to be a daikon, our large winter radish with roots that were like this. And we'll try and find you a picture of those. I think I can find a picture of those. But this is an incredibly sweet and crispy, mild radish, and it makes radishes that are huge. Many of them held throughout the winter, and indeed this one was still perfectly good in the spring. The problem was there were many other radishes around it, and they would have crossed, and we really want the complete true genetics of this. So you have to have a distance, and Suzanne Ashworth is great for telling you how far apart plants in the same family must be for distancing. And the truth is, the average backyard gardener can't approach that. There are some plants like lettuce and most tomatoes where that won't matter, so you can easily save seed without crossing. There are other plants where the crossing won't be that important. You'll still have plenty of good food. But we really wanted all the attributes of this particular one. I'll point out that we mentioned earlier that plants, when they go to seed, become covered up with aphids, and we have a close-up of that already. And I would bet that before long I'll be able to do a demonstration of beneficial insects and why aphids don't have to be a problem. They're attacking this plant because it's weakened as far as defense, because it's throwing all of its energy into making seed, but they're not going to hit all of these branches, and all of these branches are going to make seed while the aphids worry this part of the plant. Meanwhile, that's so many aphids that the predators are going to find it, and it's going to become a nursery for all kinds of predators that we are sharing pictures of on Instagram. Okay, so this is a radish, and it won't cross with the arugula, but it would cross with other radishes, which is why I dug it up, put it in a pot, and brought it back from the North Farm and put it in our greenhouse and brought it out right now to demonstrate for you. When I first put it in the pot, by the way, it totally wilted down. And you might have given up if you were a newbie and said, well, that didn't make it, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I had complete faith that all of the energy in that still big and viable root was going to go back into those leaves, it was going to recover from wilting, and it was going to be vigorous and make us a bunch of seed, and it's happening. Okay, so we're also going to look at turnips. These are one of my favorite salad turnips. We call them baby white turnips, and they're a little further down the row. They're over here. And we actually harvested loads of turnips from here because you can grow them very close together. But we didn't keep them protected from a late hard cold, and they became spongy and not very exciting. And so we said, well, we'll just leave them here for seed. And we don't usually do that, and that's for an issue that's separate from seed saving. That's because in the southeast we're plagued by an insect called the harlequin bug, which isn't out yet. We'll share its picture on Instagram. But it is really hard to control, and one of the best controls is rotation. Once again, for a backyard garden, it's not going to be a very successful control because the harlequin bug won't mind going 25 or 30 or 50 feet to the next brassica. It predates largely on brassicas and a few relatives like cleome, distant relatives, cousins, but it's really hard to control. It's got a very tough, waxy skin, very few things hurt it, and nothing wants to eat it because it's quite noxious in taste. And you'll see when you look at a picture of it that it warns everything that it's a harlequin bug and tastes terrible. It's very brightly colored. You'll find that that's often the case with things that don't taste good. And so normally we'd pull these all out so we weren't giving arborage to the harlequin bug. And we'd have any seed we were saving, which we haven't done nearly enough of, to be honest, at a garden that's about maybe a half block away, got many trees and houses in between it, and there's not likely to be a lot of interaction between the harlequin bugs in that garden and the ones here. But I made a commitment to patrol, and I patrolled every day so far. It's too soon for the harlequin bugs. They're not out, and I'm optimistic actually that these guys are going to get to finish and turn brown and become, ready to make seed before the harlequin bug shows up here. Or this might be a case where it's very close and I pull it up to let it finish in that cool, dry room. If I had to right now, I could pull these all out and they would make viable seed. But they're going to make more vigorous and more abundant seed. There's still a few of these that are making seed, like that little one right there, if they can stay in the ground. But they don't have to. If you said, I can't give up all that space, I need to put lettuce in there, then you could pull these out. Basically that's it right now. You need to make sure that if you're leaving more than one brassica, right, the broccoli cabbage family, which includes radishes and arugula, if you're going to save more than one at a time and you don't want them to cross, then you got to make sure they're not in the same family. And the way to do that is to have Suzanne Ashworth's book. Otherwise, you just let it take your time. Meanwhile, by the way, while it's making seed, it's feeding the beneficial insects. If it wasn't so cloudy and moist, we would see these flowers covered up with all kinds of syrphid flies, braconid wasps, of course honeybees making honey for us, a plethora of beneficial insects. So it's a great advantage for many reasons. We'll have seed for the future, food for our insects right now, and we got to eat a lot of them beforehand. You can save your own seed. It's not that hard.